Good evening. I'm Carrie Murray, President of ShelterBox USA. Thank you so much for being here with us for our second annual Evening to Experience ShelterBox, highlighting the life-saving work of ShelterBox and the more than 2 decades of sheltering families who've been displaced by disaster and conflict situations, all because of you. While we'd like to participate in person, we are virtual again, but we have people all across the world participating tonight. That is more than 1,000 of you who've registered. We hear that there are watch parties. There's a watch party in Australia right now. I hear down in New Orleans you're gathering, so thank you. We want this to be an hour of inspiration, and we want you to participate. So in the lower left hand of your screen, you can chat throughout tonight's event, and we want you to. And if you're so inspired, and you want to change a life and you want to make a difference, you can. There is a green donate button. And I know many of you have already been donating, so thank you so much. As a global humanitarian aid organization, ShelterBox is working on one of the toughest issues that's plaguing our world. It's this massive displacement of people. When I came together last year, I let you know that 104 million people were displaced in our world. And unfortunately, that number has grown. It is a staggering 113 million people now displaced in our world, and it is the most in recorded history. And it's people who are displaced by natural disasters, so it's everything from tsunamis and earthquakes and volcanoes and fires and floods. It's conflict situations and civil wars, as well as the consequences of climate change. Now, throughout 2021, ShelterBox has been on the front lines responding. We've been working in Haiti, where this past August, there was a devastating earthquake in the southwestern peninsula. We've been working in Honduras with categories 4 and 5 hurricanes Eta and Iota, which devastated Central America. We've been working as a result of the Tigray crisis in Ethiopia, and also working in the Syrian refugee crisis, which this year, this past March, we marked the 10-year anniversary of the Civil War. Now at ShelterBox, we believe that shelter is a basic human right, and everyone deserves a place to call home. And never has the work of ShelterBox been as important as it is right now during this global pandemic. And as really the global COVID pandemic, we're surpassing this week 5 million deaths. We're in our second year of this devastating pandemic. People still are desperate to find a place to call home. And while access for many of us to vaccines is increasing, many of people are already getting their booster vaccines. We know that life will restore to a sense of normalcy here. But in the developing countries where ShelterBox is working, one, there's very little access to vaccinations, and cases are surging. And so if you are displaced and you're a refugee and you're held right now in a collective or a transit center, there's no ability to social distance. There's no ability to isolate your family. It is absolutely critical that we bring emergency shelter to these families. And we know that whether it's a disaster, whether it's a conflict situation, or it's a global pandemic, shelter is one of the most transformational differences that you can make in someone's life. So ShelterBox was founded 21 years ago by a group of volunteers. They were Rotarians, and they created what was the first ShelterBox, based on the premise of what are the essential things that you need to sustain your life if you lose everything in an instant. And as it relates to basic needs, they're pretty basic. It's food, it's water, it's shelter. ShelterBox focuses on the provision of emergency shelter and essential supplies to set up a household when you've lost everything in an instant. So, what goes in a ShelterBox? I want to take you inside this one. So the center of gravity for a ShelterBox is this tent. And I know for many of you seeing this for the first time, this looks like a recreation tent. It is not. This is a humanitarian relief tent, and this is the place that a family will call home for weeks to months in the aftermath of losing their home in a disaster. This is a double wall tent. It's very spacious, as you can see. This can fit up to 10 people who will live in this. We've got a waterproof floor. It's a double wall tent. There are areas within the tent to actually create rooms. We have privacy screens. And this is the center of what's in a shelter box, the core of what we do. And we know that shelter is the first step in the recovery process. Now, what are the other things that you need to set up a household? What are the other life-saving, critical, essential supplies that you need? Well, so often in disasters, you've lost power. I know probably many of you in the U.S. have already lost power this year as a result of a storm. Well, we include Luminate solar lanterns. These are essential for light, basic tasks. Also in the evening, going out at night and using facilities, you need basic tools and basic lights. The other thing that we see so often in disasters is you've had contamination of the water source. So we include a water purification unit as well as containers to store clean water. Essential. Also, you see aid organizations. They're bringing in food, they're bringing in water. But what are you going to prepare a hot meal in? What are you going to boil water with? We include a whole stainless steel cook set. Cooking is so essential to restore a sense of routine and normalcy for a family when they've lost everything. The other things is we often include in the box is we include a tool set. So in the repair and the rebuild process, you need basic tools. So we include a whole tool set for the family, as well as mosquito nets. And we have one hanging here. Often in disasters, particularly wet conditions, you see vector-borne disease. You want to prevent things like malaria, so we include mosquito nets. And then here on the floor is where people will sleep. So we have waterproof blankets, ground mats, and then things like scarves and hats and really basic things for the family. One box will serve one family. A box is $1,000 delivered. And this is truly life-saving for the family who's going to receive a shelter box. Now, ShelterBox has a variety of other tent solutions, shelter solutions that we provide depending on the environmental situation that we go into. But also we've been pioneering really the use of what's called a shelter kit. And what you see behind me, these tarpaulins, these basic tools and fixins, and this bag here will create a single room structure for a family who's been displaced, or this same shelter kit can help repair a home that's been damaged. Right now in places like Haiti, we're deploying thousands of these kits, which will be a home for a family. So regardless of whether it's a tent, it's a tarp, it's the box, it's the kit, the purpose is always the same: to give the family a place to call home in the aftermath of a disaster. And this is the first step in the recovery process. Now, really, what we see is the whole world has had this pandemic that's been raging across our countries. And while we're all at risk, displaced families are particularly vulnerable. Now, in 2020 and 2021, we knew at ShelterBox that our work was more important than ever before, and we knew we had to keep going. It was very difficult, borders were closed, and we knew that we needed to really help these families who were displaced and do it quickly. We adapted our aid package, so we needed to do things that we hadn't done before. We added things like soap, hand washing basins, hygiene products to the aid package. We also included PPE, so gloves, sanitizers, masks. We started doing remote trainings. So in lieu of being able to sometimes send our physical response team members in, we trained our partners on the ground virtually through Zoom and did remote training. We also have a real sense of urgency at ShelterBox around mapping and tracking what we do in post-deployment monitoring and evaluation. We did all of that virtually last year as well through these remote trainings. But all about mitigating the spread of the disease and ensuring that we can still to reach the most vulnerable families. So, over the past 21 years, ShelterBox has responded to over 300 emergencies in over 107 countries. We've brought shelter to 2.2 million people and counting. And some of those most notable deployments include the Indian Ocean tsunami. What you see there is the largest aircraft in the world. Every single one of those boxes is one family that will receive a shelter. The 2010 earthquake in Haiti, one of our largest natural disaster responses in our history. 1.5 million people lost everything in an instant. It killed hundreds of thousands of people. ShelterBox was one of the largest providers of emergency shelter to Haiti post that earthquake. Hurricane Harvey. So I was here in this office and I got the call from FEMA back in 2017 when Harvey was approaching. And they said, we're calling our nonprofit partners to fill gaps. And we know there's going to be many and we need you. So we deployed. I went down to the George R. Brown Convention Center where thousands of people were sheltering, and we brought our shelter within a shelter to provide privacy in congregated settings to the people down in Houston. We've also worked extensively across the Sahel of Africa in the Lake Chad Basin. This is the forgotten crisis. We're going to share more with you on that tonight, as well as the Syrian refugee crisis. And this is the longest piece of the work of ShelterBox is in response to the Syrian crisis. We have been continuously responding in Syria for the past 10 years. So how do we do it? Well, it takes a village, and it takes a global village, I'll tell you. And we never go it alone at ShelterBox. We always have partners that we work with on the ground. And our longest standing partnership at ShelterBox is with one of the oldest service organizations in the world, Rotary International. Rotary helps us go farther. They're involved in nearly 100% of our natural disaster responses, with local Rotarians helping on the ground. And today we remain the official project partner of Rotary International in emergencies. In addition to Rotary, we have an incredible catalyst of our work, and really involved in everything that we do is a group of volunteers. It's an army of global volunteers that comprise what's known as the SRT, the ShelterBox Response Team. These folks go through about a year during the selection and application process. It's grueling. 1 in 30 people will pass the program and they will become a ShelterBox Response Team member. And these folks literally deploy to the front lines of crisis, and they get our aid to where it needs to go any way that they can. And we most recently deployed these response team members as a result of this past August earthquake in Haiti. Now, the SRTs really drop everything. They serve on the front lines, and they are real heroes in the world of what we do in humanitarian relief. And I'd like to introduce to you now one of those response team members. He has donated thousands of hours of his time on the front lines. He's been a response team member for 12 years. He's been the board chair, past board chair of ShelterBox USA, and he's currently on the board of ShelterBox UK. And Bill Decker, thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you can take us to the front lines and share a little bit more about your experience working with our organization. And thank you so much for being here, Bill.
Thank you, Carrie. My name is Bill Decker. I'm a ShelterBox Response Team member of the ShelterBox United Kingdom Board, and past chair of the ShelterBox USA Board. Been a ShelterBox Response Team member for 12 years, and I've deployed to major disasters around the world, including some major events in the Philippines, Indonesia, Peru, and of course Haiti. Haiti was the single largest disaster I've ever seen in terms of devastation, mortality, etc. And I think of several experiences that I had there on the ground, but one stands out to me significantly, and that was one that happened where we resided when we were there. So we were part of a larger group medical tent that was the only functioning hospital in the entire country, and it was right on the tarmac of Port-au-Prince Airport because that was a safe place to be. ShelterBox tents were actually used as the early surgical theaters, as well as medical isolation and a morgue, as well as our teams were camping essentially inside our ShelterBox tents as part of that community. The morgue and medical isolation were directly across from our tents. And I'll remember one day specifically that has impacted me pretty deeply. And I was standing outside and I heard some screaming at the top of a woman's lungs. And I thought that something potentially violent or traumatic had happened. And then I looked over and noticed that this woman was standing in front of the morgue tent. And what I realized at that point was she'd probably lost a family member and was bereaved by that. What happened next was what I didn't expect. When the morgue van pulls up and they bring out the aluminum flat top transport piece, and instead of what you usually see, which would be a large size adult on it, it was a very small figure. And it was one of those moments where I could see the anguish in these people, and that this disaster was going to continue on for many years. Its effects, the infection rates and the homelessness and all of the other pieces that would come from this disaster are still ongoing today. And it's pretty unforgettable when I went to the airport at the end of my deployment, and I sat on that airplane in a comfortable seat, and I thought about that day, that they don't get to go home. They're going to deal with the rest of this disaster on an ongoing basis. And the very least that I can do is go tell the story. My deployment began that day. It was time for me to go home and to talk to everybody about it, because if you don't tell the story, it never happened. And so I've done that. And I hope you can see what types of work ShelterBox does and what kind of impact we have. In fact, we've been back to Haiti 6 times since then, and we'll likely be back there again. Most recently, we were there on August 14th, after the August 14th 7.2 earthquake. That was quite devastating. And we have today our CEO, Sanj Srikandan, to tell us about our activity there in 2021. Thank you.
In August 2021, Haiti was struck by a devastating 7.2 magnitude earthquake, killing more than 2,200 people and causing widespread damage. More than 135,000 homes were reported damaged or destroyed, and over 1 million people desperately needed emergency humanitarian assistance. We deployed a ShelterBox Response Team to the region to find out from communities what they needed and work on the challenging logistics of delivering aid to areas where buildings have been reduced to rubble and insecurity remains. Together, we distributed emergency shelter aid to families that lost everything in that disaster.
All the aid has now safely arrived into Port-au-Prince and it is being trucked to our partner Habitat for Humanity Haiti's warehouse in Port-au-Prince, where it is currently being offloaded and counted.
We're excited to be able to announce that our aid is making its way from Port-au-Prince all the way down to the earthquake-affected area in southwest Haiti.
ShelterBox teams were on hand to train and provide technical support to our trusted partner Habitat for Humanity Haiti.
Here we are working with the team from Habitat for Humanity Haiti. We're doing some shelter kit training this morning. So what we've done is we've gone through the usual things of fixing a tarpaulin into rope. It's really all about how to make the most of the kit that we're able to give in order for these people to assist in training the community in making the most of those items and making the strongest type of shelters that they possibly can.
Our work to support displaced families in Haiti and around the world continues. Your support makes this possible. Thank you for ensuring families who've lost their homes to disaster have the supplies they need to rebuild and recover their lives.
Thank you, Sanj. Now, of the 113 million people displaced in our world today, 75% are women and children. Women and children suffer disproportionately, and they are the face of displacement in our world today. Women suffer significantly higher death rates. They suffer significantly higher rates of sexual violence. In fact, 90% of women and girls experience gender-based violence in crisis settings. Millions of women are forced to make the impossible decision to leave everything they have behind for the sake of their children and so their families can survive. At ShelterBox, we prioritize the most vulnerable, and they are often women and children. I'd love to introduce to you now one of our response team members, Yishan Lai, who is on the front lines helping empower women with the tools that they need. Because one thing we know for certain is that women are at the center of community recovery.
Hi, my name is Ishan Lai. I'm a ShelterBox Response Team member and have been for over a decade. I have the remarkable privilege of deploying to areas in their greatest times of need. And at those times, we meet some remarkable women. You may not know this, but it is women who are most impacted by disasters. Oftentimes, they aren't taught to swim or climb trees. They're often inside with their children, either engaging in childcare or engaging in education or just basic household tasks. So when a natural disaster strikes, they are indeed the most prone to be affected. Remarkably, though, it is also those women who happen to take leadership roles when it comes to recovering from a disaster. They're the ones that are the linchpins of their communities and their societies, and they're the ones that work really, really hard to make sure that their communities band together to recover from, again, the worst days of their lives. We've seen evidence of this in country after country after country. And I think it's part of this reason that we've been so lucky to open up a Philippines operational office that is helmed by two remarkable women. Rosemarie and Marlu are two of the most remarkable women I've ever met. They do come from a background of disaster relief, but I think it's in their roles as heads of ShelterBox's operational team in the Philippines that has allowed them to really step into their capacity as being pillars of community and recovery. Thank you for your support.
Several years ago, I was in the island nation of the Philippines. I was on an island called the Bantayan Islands, and I was deployed there after Typhoon Haiyan, the strongest storm ever recorded to make landfall in the world. And I saw ShelterBox everywhere. I knew when I came back from that trip that I needed to join this organization. And it is an absolute privilege to work for ShelterBox. ShelterBox deploys more to the island nation of the Philippines than any other place in the world. It is known as Typhoon Alley. And in order to be more effective and efficient in responding there, we knew that we needed to set up operations. And so we established Operations ShelterBox Philippines. We registered as a local nonprofit, and we pre-positioned thousands of households of shelter kits, and we stand ready to deploy when typhoons affect that nation. I'd love to introduce to you now a little bit more about our work in the Philippines and have you meet one of my colleagues, Rosemarie. The Philippines is one of the most disaster-affected countries in the world, and 90% of major disasters are caused by severe weather events. The Philippines, unfortunately, is the face of climate vulnerability. We've responded more to the island nation than any other country in the world. In 2019, ShelterBox established ShelterBox Operations Philippines in Cebu, where we pre-position life-saving shelter and essential aid items so we can respond effectively and efficiently when disasters strike. Since 2004, ShelterBox, with the support of Rotary, has responded to over 31 disasters, including Typhoon Haiyan, the strongest storm ever recorded to make landfall in the world. And we provided emergency shelter and essential aid to over 100,000 people. Our urgency to act is unmatched, and we have been responding across the Philippines during the global pandemic. And we continue to respond to volcanoes, typhoons, and disasters that strike the country. Now, I'd love to introduce you to my colleague at ShelterBox Operations Philippines, Rosemarie. And we want to say a big thank you to all of our colleagues in the Philippines who do this life-saving work.
ShelterBox has responded during this pandemic, providing 8,600 families with vital shelter aid items they needed to survive and stay healthy. One of the families we supported was Jennifer's. After Typhoon Goni destroyed her home and livelihood last November, ShelterBox provided her family with a shelter kit and supplies to help them rebuild their home. Right now, we need your support more than ever. We are currently deep into typhoon season, and the next emergency is just around the corner. We need your help now so we can be ready to give to people the life-changing support they need when they need it most. From all of us at ShelterBox Operations Philippines, thank you for your support.
For organizations like ShelterBox, it's natural disasters that garner the headlines and also garner the private charitable support. Disasters drive donations. But the leading driver of global displacement is actually conflict and civil war situations, where families have to leave everything behind. The fastest growing piece of the work of ShelterBox has been in conflict situations. And in particular, the longest piece of our work has been as a result of the Syrian refugee crisis. For the past 10 years, we've been continuously responded, helping both IDPs, internally displaced people within Syria, as well as Syrian refugees. And it is a piece of work that we remain absolutely committed to. Over the past 10 years, we've brought emergency shelter and supplies to over 500,000 people. And we're not done yet. Right now, we're in the midst of trucking our aid from Turkey into both northwestern and northeastern Syria for what will be a brutally cold winter. This is very quiet work. You don't see it in the headlines, but it is truly life-saving to the families. And it is the reason that in 2018 and in 2019, ShelterBox was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. I'd now like to take you to the front lines of our work in Syria, and I want you to meet one of the families. And I'm going to introduce you to a teacher. His name is Khaled, and his 2 children. And so you can learn a bit more about the type of families that we're working to support every day at ShelterBox.
10 20 30 40 50 60
60 حط لي 60 بعقلك اللي صاب على النايمات هذا.
والله طلعنا من بيتنا تحت قصف الطيران وضرب المدفعية. وصلنا لمناطق قميناس بصعوبة جدا بعد معاناة. والله كان الشتاء بسوريا شتاء يعني في برودة، في ثلج، في نتيجة والله الفيضانات بالفترة الأخيرة اجى فيضان شديد ونحن صايرين بمنطقة منخفضة. العناصر أول شيء البراكية طارت لشرق المجرور تكسرت، الشوادر تشلخت.
جدول الضرب أكيد مانك حافظانه. لا ما أنت بدي أعلمك على طريقة.
أكيد الأمور كل ما حال للأحسن، يعني بعد أول أكيد كان المساعدة كانت جيدة، والشوادر تشقشقت كمان، صرنا يعني نغطي الخيم بالشادر لمنع المطر اللي تلقينا أثناء السيول والطوفان والأمطار الغزيرة. أكيد أنا بالنسبة لي سابقا كنت معلم مدرسي، أحاول أنه أعلمهم في أوقات الفراغ في البيت الشيء أنا وأمهم. والمدرسة يعجبني أنه أي طفل أنه يتعلم ولو القراءة والكتابة، ولكن أنا طموحي هالأطفال أنه يحصلوا يكملوا المرحلة الدراسية حتى آخر مرحلة تعليمية وهي مرحلة الجامعة، في سبيل أن يحصلوا على وظائف في المستقبل، لأنه نحن جماعة يعني حياتنا الأساسية هي الوظيفة. أتمنى أنه يعيشوا بسعادة ويتخلصوا من هالأمور اللي نحن فترة هالنزوع، وكل واحد أنه
نجي كعملية يعني مفيدة لك وتتعلمها.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Khaled. We remain absolutely committed to the work in Syria. Now this year, ShelterBox responded to categories 4 and 5 hurricanes, Hurricanes Eta and Iota, which devastated Central America. We really focused our response efforts on really the hardest hit municipalities across Honduras. And this response would not have been possible without our relationship with Rotary International. It was local Rotarians on the ground that stepped up, that enabled us to scale our response and serve more people that were displaced by the disaster. I'd love to share more with you about our relationship with Rotary and also the power of partnership. At ShelterBox, our partnership with Rotary International truly spans the globe. Each year, Rotary helps us go further, support more people, and access areas that would otherwise be impossible to reach. Last year, the Atlantic hurricane season was the most active in history. In November, Hurricane Eta and Iota brought a wave of destruction across Central America. Iota made landfall in Honduras as a Category 5 hurricane, and it was the strongest hurricane of the year. ShelterBox responded in Honduras, where an estimated 82,000 homes were damaged and 175,000 people were sheltering in collective centers. Thousands of these families displaced by the storm had to relocate to communal shelters, and they didn't have masks, the ability to social distance, or access water to wash their hands. By partnering with Rotary and Habitat for Humanity in the region, ShelterBox supported over 3,200 families with shelter kits, tarps, mosquito nets, kitchen sets, blankets, water carriers, water filters, solar lights, and other essential items. In total, we were able to reach 118 of the hardest hit communities in 24 municipalities, providing emergency shelter to families living in communal centers and makeshift camps. In 2020, we joined forces with the Rotary Club of San Pedro Sula and Habitat for Humanity Honduras to support families in the aftermath of these devastating hurricanes. This response showed the power of partnership. Each party brought their capacity, their skills, and the resources to the emergency response efforts. ShelterBox provided equipment and aid items. We organized international logistics and provided digital training and technical support. Habitat for Humanity Honduras and the Rotary Club of San Pedro Sula's local knowledge, their connections, networks, they were vital in helping us throughout the response, from arranging importation to ensuring a community-led response. Now, more than ever, our partnership with Rotary is fundamental to what we do, and we won't stop. No family should go without shelter after disaster. Your support now will help us continue this vital work around the world. I am so excited this evening to be able to present to you the 2021 Global Humanitarian Service Award. Each year, we recognize an organization that is quietly working around the world to do transformational work and make a difference in people's lives. And this organization is a very quiet organization that has been helping people around the world who've been displaced by disaster and conflict situation. They promote wildlife preservation. They have feeding programs for children. They have preservation programs in art history. They have dozens of organizations that they are quietly supporting. And this foundation is known as the Dale and Edna May Foundation, also known as the Do Foundation. The Do Foundation has been supporting the work of ShelterBox for over 15 years. And in early 2020, we got a call from one of the members of that foundation, Jennifer Walsh, and she said, "I know that we can do more." At the time, the COVID shutdowns were beginning to happen, and children across Syria were literally freezing to death in a horribly cold winter. And she said, "I know that we can do more, and we really want to help lean in to your winterized programs," and they did in a big way. And we want to say a big thank you to them for enabling the life-saving work of ShelterBox. So it's my absolute privilege tonight to award the 2021 Global Humanitarian Service Award to the Do Foundation, and I'm pleased to welcome Jennifer Walsh.
Well, thank you. We do accept this wonderful award, and we appreciate being presented the 2021 Global Humanitarian Service Award. I am one of 4 children of Dale and Edna Mae Walsh, who founded the Do Foundation almost 20 years ago. We're a small family foundation, and we make grants to a broad range of charitable causes. Disaster relief steps forward as a particular concern to me. It also so happens to be the easiest one to get approval of everyone on the board. The sudden destruction of a home, a neighborhood, and sometimes a whole community, whether by weather or war, is heartbreaking. We all want to bring aid to the people affected so they can survive this tragedy and rebuild. We understand as a foundation that this takes ongoing support and a relationship with a qualified team of people. ShelterBox has provided us with the ability to transform our monetary support into effective action year after year. The Do Foundation is honored to accept this award, but we are equally humbled by the hard work ShelterBox and their teams do on the ground in these areas with these people to provide disaster relief in their greatest time of need. So thank you so much for this award.
Thank you, Jennifer, and congratulations to the Do Foundation. Now, one of my favorite pieces of work at ShelterBox is really in response to an area of the world that gets no attention. And when you look on the Human Development Index, these countries are some of the poorest. It's across the Sahel of Africa, in an area known as the Lake Chad Basin. It is truly the forgotten crisis. ShelterBox has been working quietly in refugee camps in an area called Cameroon. And this area around the Lake Chad Basin is Cameroon, Chad, Niger, and Nigeria. And we focus our efforts on the Minowao camp in Cameroon, and we have a very important role. So often, refugees are coming in from Nigeria, tens of thousands, fleeing Boko Haram violence. Many of them are women and children, and they flee often in the middle of the night. They've lost family members. They've left everything behind. And they arrive to the Minowao camp, and they're typically held in transit or collective centers. And it could be a period of weeks to months while they're processed through in that camp. And their recovery truly starts when they receive a plot of land from the government and a ShelterBox tent and an aid package. And ShelterBox is the only provider of tents to new arrivals at that camp, and we remain absolutely committed to continuing this work. Recovery for these families truly starts with shelter. I want to take you to the front lines of the Minowao camp, and I want to introduce you to Tishmaya.
Ashka maya inchkanga fa bianga da matsa anchkada maya klen ta fefa gugi ta gime klen anchkanga fa anga hakasa vi kukul mokuda yakna vi kukul mokwa agi kamamba gi ga kuda chau gi khchin ka inza an isunzo kos prami sata gaba ga shika zambal fkadi agra laris ga bian ka mamba haya kadang higin di mata was dausa kal mata khiga akwati gam Ara bokwiga jehega makaras bokola bokwi samana disa. Anda sangula gidasa. Bokwi skinga sa jeheg makaras kam zenda.
So we're here. This is the moment that we know you've been waiting for. The ability to make a difference, to transform a life. All of you have the opportunity to do that tonight. Once a year, we come together for an evening to experience ShelterBox. We take you to the front lines so you can see the transformational differences that shelter can make in the lives of families that have lost everything in an instant. Tonight, we hope that you give and that we hope that you make a difference. We have a big goal tonight. It's to raise $250,000 for deployment essentials. What does that mean? Deployment essentials means everything that we need to bring to families and be prepared. It's tents, it's tarps, it's cook sets, it's solar lanterns, it's mosquito nets, it's water purification, it's shelter and the life-saving items families need to set up a household. You can make a difference. And I am unbelievably surprised. I am shocked. I am looking at the screen right now and I don't even know what to say. We're at $147,232 and it's going up every second. And I just saw that there was a chat from an incredibly generous foundation, the Crystal Springs Foundation. And Joyce and Mike Murray, we are so humbled by your participation and your support of this organization's work. We couldn't do it without you. And we know that you've made a pledge tonight that you are going to match. If we can get to $250,000, you said that you will match it, and that is unbelievable. We thank you, and we thank every single one of you. Every dollar counts, and we need you more than ever. So thank you for being here. I want to share with you where that money goes and how much it's going to make a difference. So for $250,000, we can actually bring shelter to a community. We can shelter a community. It's incredible. For $100,000, we can bring shelter to 1,000 families with the shelter kits. And right now, we're just coming off of a deployment in Haiti with 2,000 shelter kits. So you can make a difference. $50,000 can bring 50 of these shelter boxes behind me. 50 families will receive support. I want to acknowledge some of the people that are giving tonight. You've dug really deep and it's incredible. We have a $50,000 anonymous donation. Wow. Thank you so much. The Tonkinson Family Foundation, we saw you brought in, you're giving $10,000. You pledged, it's incredible. Mark and Susan Piersma, amazing $10,000. Thank you. Steve and Heather Horan, thank you. $5,000. Crystal Bond from Salt Lake City for $5,000. Jane Klinghorn, thank you. Jan Reed, Rob Wavra, Catherine Fick, our board chair. Thank you so much, Catherine. Christine Kostner, thank you so much. And lots of Rotary Clubs. Thank you, Martin and Carrie Lee. I see you there. I want to share with you maybe just some of the aid items again. And people always ask me, what's your favorite aid item? And mine is likely this one. It's the ShelterBox Cook Set. If you know me, you know I like to cook. And I really believe in the power of restoring routine and restoring really a sense of normalcy, and that often comes with sharing a meal for a family. And so for $250, you can do something like this. For $500, it's a tent. There are so many ways to give at ShelterBox. So I want to share with you now other ways that people dig deep and they get involved, and the non-monetary ways that people make a difference. And it's really incredible. Tonight, we've raised $179,000. It's amazing. I hope we keep going. We want to get to $250,000. There are so many ways to give. And I want to introduce you to two gentlemen that are really making a difference. One is Jesse Pine. And Jesse Pine is a ShelterBox volunteer. He's an ambassador. And he's decided during COVID that he wanted to get out of his bicycle. And he pulled his bicycle out of the garage. and he cycled 3,700 miles over 65 days from Yosemite to Homer, Alaska. Also, Chase Parr, we know you're there. Chase summited all 67 of the 4,000 footers in New England. It was Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire. He didn't do it alone. Chase Parr put a shelter box on his back, and he also had his puppy, Keatna, in tow. Amazing. These gentlemen combined have raised over $30,000. Thank you. I also want to introduce you to a really incredible gentleman that has gone extreme lengths to take on his own challenge of raising awareness and mobilizing life-saving revenue for this organization to help us do this work. And his name is Stephen Tonkinson. And Stephen is a really special guy. He is a ShelterBox Response Team member. He deploys to the front lines of disaster situations. He's also a ShelterBox ambassador, volunteer, and he's also a member of the ShelterBox Board of Directors and serves on the Finance Committee. Steve, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, I'm Stephen Tonkinson. I'm a ShelterBox Response Team member, have been since 2009. I knew when I joined ShelterBox, whether it was going to be as a response team member or as an ambassador, I was going to be involved in some capacity because I believed so much in what they were doing and how they were doing it. And it was something that connected with me very deeply. And I knew even if I wasn't going to be able to deploy, I was going to be involved getting the word out and by that raising money for the ability for us to respond and respond proactively. You know, we need to have the things prepared in preparation for these upcoming disasters. It's not after the fact, but really before. The other thing too that I found was really useful was identifying things that, again, I'm passionate about and enjoy doing and connecting them, creating that synergy. And I'm a big runner, and I've been doing the Miami Marathon or half marathon since its inception. I just completed the 18th one this February. And one year I decided, you know what, I want to do something big with this. And I decided to strap a shelter box on my back and run the marathon. And again, combining those two passions made it that much easier. And when you have that passion behind that message, it just makes the whole process that much easier and smoother, and people respond to that. And I think that's the thing that's most important, is when you're trying to find out what you want to do from a fundraising standpoint, find something that you're passionate about so that it's effortless, and you should do well.
Amazing. The ways that people make a difference always surprises me, inspires me. And I know many of you have been chatting and you want to know about volunteer opportunities. Well, we are hosting a virtual open house in mid-November. So if you would like to learn more on how you can be one of our adventurers or you can be a ShelterBox ambassador, could you please text YES, yes, into the chat box, and we will reach out to you and make sure you get an invitation to the virtual open house where you're going to learn about lots of volunteer opportunities with our organization. Okay, we're nearing $200,000. It's amazing. I want to acknowledge some more people who are giving. The Zagar Family Foundation, they're here in Santa Barbara. Thank you so much. You pledged $10,000. That's incredible. Sammer Jabber, Dr. Jabber in New York, we see you. Thank you. Robert Reed, Jeffrey Cataract, I see you in Pennsylvania. Thank you so much. Joan and Kent Bowes, Gary Halloran, the Rotary Club of Santa Barbara. Thank you. Thank you so much. Robert Miller, Paul Reed, Peter Gray, Rotary Club of Lowell, Rotary Club of Great Barrington, J.E. Hall, Rotary Rockport, Bernadette Bagley. I know you, Bernadette, from Montecito Rotary. Thank you so much. The Rotary Club of Ridgewood, Rotary Club of Wallkill East, Rotary Club Cottage Grove, Michael Slomak, yay! Noman Sharif, ShelterBox board member, thank you so much. Robert Host, Cheryl Gold, Christy Singer, thank you, Christy. Magdalena Road, thank you so much. We're at 195,000. We're almost there. We have to get to 250,000. Thank you so much. I can't tell you how far this will go. And this has been a year when ShelterBox has really burned through a lot of our inventory. For our response in Haiti, we took from our warehouse in Panama. We drew down all the inventory we had. We emptied the warehouse. We need to resupply. We need tents, we need tarps, we need lights. We have to be ready. You can't do in a disaster what you don't do otherwise, and we have to be prepared. Thank you, Andrew Morse from New York City. Thank you so much. Rotary Club of Media, Pennsylvania. Donna Petroco, Jamie Klein, John Larkin, Max and Jen Drucker. Thank you. Thank you so much. Lucky Drucker, thank you so much for donating. We're almost there. We're over 200,000. I see we're at 205,000, and we're not done yet. But tonight would absolutely not be complete if I didn't introduce to you someone who leads this organization in so many ways. She is one of the most inspiring women I have ever met in my life. She is a privacy attorney by day at IBM, and she is a ShelterBox Response Team member. She gives thousands of hours of her time to this organization. She both deploys to the front lines, she serves as an ambassador, and she also serves as chair of ShelterBox USA, and she also serves on the board of ShelterBox UK. Catherine Fick, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your leadership and all of your support.
Hi, my name is Catherine Fick, and I'm the ShelterBox USA board chair, and I'm also a response team member. If I could pick one word to describe ShelterBox, it would be hopeful. We provide hope to the families we serve around the world. We also provide hope, frankly, to each of us who see disasters unfolding around the world, whether politically or through natural causes, and we wonder, what can anybody do about this? The answer is there is something that each of us can do, and that is shown in the aid that we deliver to the families around the world and the hope that we're able to provide them on behalf of everybody who supports the organization. I want to take a moment to thank all of our ambassadors and other volunteers who make the work that we do possible. You have a direct role in giving hope and aid to the families that we serve. You are part of why ShelterBox makes a difference. Thank you, and thank you for the work that you have done and will continue to do on behalf of those families around the world.
We're almost there. We're over $200,000 on our way to $250,000. And what we hope that you will do is keep giving, keep pledging, keep giving until it feels good. But know that you can make a difference in someone's life. There are a lot of people that make tonight possible, and they're all behind the scenes. And I don't know if they're going to let me see you. Can we see this whole crew here? I want to say a thank you to Carrie behind the camera, Channing, Paul, Alfredo, Gianni, Tyler. Thank you so much for making this happen. We are going to stay on. We're going to keep chatting, and we want to keep inspiring you with the work that your support enables. We appreciate you so much, and you make this life-saving work of ShelterBox possible. I want to thank everyone who participated tonight, and most importantly, all the beneficiaries from around the world who shared their stories. These are the real heroes that we support day in and day out at ShelterBox. And while our work may not make the headlines, it is life-saving, and we will keep at it. And we only do it because of the private charitable support that you provide. So thank you so much for participating. I want to thank everyone who gave tonight. You are making a difference. Also, thank you, Crystal Spring Foundation, the Murrays. This is an incredible match. This is incredibly inspiring. So thank you so much. We are almost there. Help us reach this goal. Thank you so much for being here. We'll continue to keep you posted on our work at ShelterBox. And thank you to everyone who makes this life-saving work possible. We'll see you next year.